Hey, it's the Savvy Nomad team here again. Today we're going to talk about a growing problem in the expat community, and that's getting your bank account closed because you're living overseas. In this video, we'll review exactly why US banks are kicking out their expat customers. Now, the good news is that there are ways you can prevent this from happening, and we'll cover all the different options that are available to you right now in 2026. Let's dive in. So first things first, why are US banks giving expats and nomads such a hard time? Well, there's this law, you might have heard of it. It's called the Patriot Act. Now, for most of us, the Patriot Act probably isn't something we think about very often. It was passed 25 years ago, for God's sake. And for a lot of that time, some of the provisions just weren't enforced very strictly, partially because the technology for enforcement simply didn't exist. Since 2001, a lot has changed in terms of global mobility, banking online, working remotely, you name it. At the same time, banks have more and more tools for tracking customers and actually enforcing those Patriot Act provisions. The big one for banks is Know Your Customer, KYC. Under the Patriot Act, banks are supposed to verify that their customers are who they say they are and that they actually do live in the US. This is related to AML, anti-money laundering, which is supposed to block financing for terrorist organizations. Basically, what banks want to see is that you have a real physical presence in the US and that you're residing at a real residential street address. Note that these requirements also apply to credit cards, definitely not something you want to lose while overseas. Now, it goes without saying that you don't want to tell your bank or your credit card company that you moved overseas to a different country, all right? Don't give them a foreign address. What you do need to ensure is that they have a real physical address on file, one that matches what's on your driver's license or where you can at least provide some sort of proof that you live there, such as a lease or a utility bill. But if you're living abroad in Mexico or the Philippines or wherever, that's obviously going to be a bit of a logistical problem. So how do you get around this requirement that you have a physical address so you can keep or open a US bank account? Option A is to use a virtual mailbox. For over 20 years, many expats were in fact using mail forwarding services like iPostal or Anytime Mailbox without any issues whatsoever. The problem now is that most of these providers are flagged as CMRAs, or commercial mail receiving agencies. These addresses are not coded as residential in bank databases, which could get your account flagged. Now, some people on the internet claim that they've successfully opened bank accounts using virtual addresses, but over time, you do run a risk of getting caught. We're seeing that happen more and more with our clients because of new AI detection tools. Option B is to simply use a trusted friend or family member's address here in the US. A lot of people do this, and oftentimes it does work out perfectly, but here's the problem. If the address on your ID doesn't match what you give the bank, then they're probably going to ask for proof of address like a lease or a utility bill. Again, we're back to all that KYC stuff that we talked about before. The bank wants to verify that you actually live there. If you can't prove that you live at your friend or relative's address, or if they end up moving one day, then you could be out of luck. Now, option C, obviously, if you have a lot of spare money lying around, you can just rent an apartment somewhere in the US and give that address to the banks. But unless you're extremely wealthy, that's a bit of a non-starter, which brings us to yours truly, the team here at Savvy Nomad. Our domicile service can get you a real residential street address in Florida for an affordable monthly rate. Over 1,000 customers use our solutions for banking, voting, and other financial purposes. Florida also has the advantage of being very tax-friendly. There's no personal income tax, so really, why wouldn't you want to do this? So if you're interested in a long-term permanent solution to the banking address problem, check out the link in the video description and use the code YouTube for a discount. Now, if you do decide to live the expat or nomad lifestyle, it's kind of a no-brainer that you should maintain multiple US bank accounts. Despite all of the precautions that we talked about, it's still possible that the bank somehow detects that you're living abroad and decides to shut down your account. In that case, you want to make sure you have multiple ways to access your money abroad. We have a few other videos on this channel about the best banks and debit cards for US expats and nomads living abroad, so make sure to check those out. If you enjoyed this video and you want more expat and nomad tax tips and financial strategies for living abroad, make sure you subscribe because we're always putting out new content, and hit that like button. It helps us out in the algorithm so we can get this content to more people who need to see it. Until next video, safe travels and happy tax planning.